I'd like to direct this question to Norman and Gil because they've worked with a lot of students in lay conditions, and now sort of people that you've seen and worked with who've been your teachers. Now, the question is, the inquiries about people that you have seen their progress throughout their years towards the decades, and how you've seen them change for the potential of this practice. So, Norman, Gil, whoever wants to go first, take it away.
People that I admire the most, actually, the people that I would tell stories like this about, are people that I've been practicing Zen with, regular people, right, for decades, who are able to bear their illness and death with dignity, who are able to be a support for their families, who are able to be humble and simple and live their lives. And they're not as impressive, actually, from the outside as some people who have been produced by 1,000 years of Buddhist culture, which is a marvelous and amazing thing. But I think for us now, to me, it's just as impressive. Because the world we live in is, quite difficult, and it doesn't provide the Western world, and now increasingly outside of Buddhist communities in Asia, the Asian world too is very troubled. So I don't think we want to be saying that these great practitioners are the ideal to which we aspire, because we will never get there. However, there is an ideal to which we can aspire, which is to be, really kind, humble people, truly, unselfishly willing to be of service to one another. And we actually can be, I was really moved by what you were saying a moment ago, that our smallness might arise, but we don't have to be persuaded by it, as I'm sure you're not, most of the time. Sometimes, but a smaller percentage of the time, I'm sure, than when you were young, So we can, I think we can, that I think is quite realistic, quite possible. And in fact, I actually feel like it is that kind of awakening, and I would consider it to be a valuable kind of awakening, is really available, I actually think, to anybody who would practice seriously over a long period of time, because it takes discipline, it takes commitment over time. But I think if that's awakening, and I feel it is, a kind of awakening that's quite valuable, then we can all aspire to that kind of ideal. And so I don't have any problem celebrating the great sages and teachers who we've met in our lifetime. But if we think it's about them and not about the practice that produced them and the whole world that made it possible for them to achieve what they achieved, then we're going to get mixed up in our own practice. We're going to practice, and we're going to be really disappointed that we're not the Dalai Lama. And then we're going to give it up because, I'm still the same schlump that I was before, so why bother? No, I think we have to be clever about this and think about it more and realize that in each context, awakening is going to appear differently.
And I also appreciate another way that I hear that is really the ordinariness of awakening, really, the ordinariness of it, not to put it on a pedestal, which my hope is, demystified in a way. The idea of freedom, awakening, it's not something that's just reserved for a few, but it's available in so many different shapes or forms. It's available to us in daily life, in lay life. Gil, would you like to comment on that?
I like that, the ordinariness. Um, I usually don't use the language of enlightenment or stages of awakening or things like that. If I use anything comparable to that, I like the word maturity, that people mature in the Dharma. And people mature in many different ways, but absolutely, I've seen many lay people mature to a great extent. And it's been quite inspiring to me to see students mature and grow and develop and unfold. The question of lay versus monastic, I think that lay practitioners have just as much, if they practice sincerely and dedicatedly, and have just as much opportunities for the kind of deep experiences of release, of freedom or letting go, as a monastic does. But the disadvantage of lay life is that it's too easy to get back, come out of that experience and get swept up in the concerns of everyday life. So the experience of letting go or release doesn't remain close by to be a guide or support or reference point to mature further from that vantage point. And so I think the art of it in lay life is to whatever degree of letting go has been significant and meaningful, is to somehow keep that alive as the path of practice, is to keep maturing and developing through that.